What's going on, creators? Yeah, I just want to get on here and bring everybody back to now. Appreciate y'all being here and vibing with me for a bit. Yeah, today I'd like to talk a little bit about growing more of a hopeful attitude, and how to start using what you have in your life to start to move in that direction of hope. It's something I hear a lot of in the truth community. This like hopeless spiral of like, oh, everything's just some hellscape and things are getting worse and worse. And did you hear it's going to be a terrible winter this year? It's like I hear that every fucking year from some hysterical, fearful person that oh, it's doom and gloom. And I was in that boat for like probably a decade, thinking the world was ending, and that that they was just like Machiavellian, just in control of shit. And I was into all of that, for a long time. And it took a lot of like growing in my own self in like relationship with God to realize like none of that's real. And what is real though is your relationship with God, your identity in Christ, your mindsets, what you're thinking about, how you're spending the day, in thought, word and deed. But even in word and deed, a lot of that starts in your own mindset and beliefs and everything. And if your beliefs are towards this downward spiral of like going from life to death, which is what pretty much the direction the world likes to think, it's easy to start to become more and more hopeless as you feel like you're, every day getting closer to death, every day getting more and more deteriorated, every, day that you wake up, oh, more aches and pains and getting closer to the inevitable death and decay. It's just that kind of like morbid, glass half empty pessimism. But not only that, but then projecting, this fear and this future Armageddon, doomsday, just like what was that movie where they're like, in the desert and they're like fighting over gasoline? I can't remember. It was like a fucking older movie, and I don't think it was even that good. It's been a long time since I've even been Road Warrior, maybe. But like yeah, this idea of just constant, and you hear this amongst like the pagan world people of just like, oh, you need to sacrifice your baby for the fucking climate. It's like all these people just thinking that the climate needs your intervention, even though it's like most people are not that big of like offenders when it comes to like pollution or whatever. It's like, if you're really concerned about like CO2, isn't when you just recommend start planting more trees? It's just like that's what trees breathe. They fucking breathe out oxygen. It's like a lot of this stuff starts to make no sense, and as it does, then it can kind of fuck with your head even more of like it's a nonsense world, it's a clown world. You got these things that don't make any sense, and then it's like the leadership is in charge of this, and then there's like a hopeless mentality associated with it. And so one of the first things to do in like building up a more hopeful attitude is realizing that nobody on the outside of you has any power whatsoever over your state of consciousness. And so it's like every like authority figure that you're like enslaving yourself to, not only have you put them on the pedestal, then you have given them the authority over you and your consciousness, but not to say that's even really your fault, because it's like part of like the programming from the Matrix is like this external programming that happens from childhood. Your parents program you, the schools program you, the culture in general starts to program you. These outside experts start to program you as you get older, and so it's like constantly looking to the outside for wisdom, for guidance, for belonging, for all of these actual internal states where the old slave matrix mind is always craving it from the outside. Even like, oh, theories about life and creation comes from staring at the stars. It's like, oh, how much external can you get, looking at all these fucking what are these physicists, just all these theories of just like everything exists out in space, and this is like this illusion of space and all the theory land bullshit that goes along with space shit. But like, getting back to having a more hopeful attitude, it is more about developing the inner conviction of things are getting better and better as you're in the process of awakening. Which another way to look at that is that letting go of old fears and old programming that's not serving you anymore and is actually a detriment to your state of consciousness. One of the easier ways to start moving in a direction of hope is to have a goal, having a vision of what do you really even want. Most people just are grasping at external straws to get some sort of peace, some sort of well-being, some sort of a positive emotional state, positive mental state. Nothing wrong with that, but like if you're depending on the world to guide you to that, you're chasing pissed on breadcrumbs, as Matt from Quantum of Conscious would say. And it's like, as you really dive into these different rabbit holes, those breadcrumbs just manifest more and more until you're in a totally fucking bizarro world that doesn't reflect anything other than like some sort of satanic Truman show, and that it can really spiral people even more into like this hopeless attitude. And it's like, breaking out of that, has to do with letting go of your limiting beliefs, which is ultimately what's going on outside of you. As long as you're not addressing your own state of consciousness and the fears and the hysteria, the doubt, the shame, the guilt, as long as that's running unconsciously in your mind and in your consciousness, that has a way of then projecting onto the screen of space in all these different situations that, are more than likely neutral occurrences. My takeaway from like COVID is just seeing how the unconsciousness of people just reacting out of fear just doubles down this fucking it's like error. It's like you keep doubling down on error, and then as a result, you're just like, I'm watching you self-destruct and hurting yourself. Meanwhile, you're on this pedestal, thinking that you're superior and doing something good. Yet it's like, from my perspective, it's like I'm watching you like kill yourself. It's like I'm watching you die. That's how I feel, and it's like very common. I feel like the world, going from life to death. You're watching people on that sinking ship of just death, and moving more into going from death to life. It is about connecting with God through the Spirit within you, and starting to actually ask God how to start getting a more hopeful attitude. That's the most important thing, and then trusting that you'll be led through a bridge of incidents to start clearing your consciousness of a lot of this negativity and pessimism and like suffering and torment and drama and everything else that's probably just been building up over years and decades of just living in the matrix type thing. But like with building a more hopeful attitude, is going through this process of facing your fear, and in that facing the fear, it automatically starts to then grow your faith as you start to see that everything's connected. Things are not just randomly happening. That your relationship with God and all of the kind of milestones of your life are all first given to you through your consciousness, and whether you're resisting it or you're just accepting it as an inherent part of your identity. Money's a good example, but your physical health is another good example. We all have like a body to steward and take care of, and a lot of times, like I was up to like almost 200 pounds last winter. My own drama, I was like testing something, it was like I was just eating just a bunch of just fast food and just whatever I wanted, with I was like experimenting with this like idea of like, oh, like the food itself is neutral, and it's like the story I'm telling myself regarding it, and I don't think I was necessarily wrong in that, but the unintended thing is like, you can't lie to yourself. So it's like, if you really believe something's not like healthy for you, even though you're like trying to move in a different direction, a lot of times it's just like, well, it's so embedded that it's like, okay, well, until I have like a eureka moment, I guess this is just what it's going to be until, the thing about growing faith is it's not like going from 1 to 10. It's like you go from 1 to 2, then like 2 back to 1, then 2 to 3, and back to 2, so it's like, you just like leveling up and then kind of like drifting back, then leveling up. So it's like a process, and it's like, there's some battles that are just like not even worth the drama and efforting and everything. And so moving like from the past year to like now, I think I've lost like 30 pounds or something like that. Pretty simple, in the fact that it's just like the way I've always done it is just exercise. I do a physical job, and so it's like I burn a lot of calories just throughout the day just doing work. And so it's like, oh, I just don't eat a big lunch, it's like, or no lunch, and then just eat like a whatever I want for dinner, and just don't drink like shit with like calories, and I just drink water for the most part, and then the weight just starts coming off. And so, but like the thing about it is like you don't recognize a lot of these unconscious patterns until you start moving in the opposite direction. And like the unconscious pattern of like weight gain, of being like not taking care of your body, is a subtle, and it's like very subtle in my own self, maybe not so subtle in others, but it's like this subtle mental narrative of like, oh, I'm getting like unhealthy, I'm becoming more and more unattractive, these like negative attributes of like this state of consciousness, because every state of consciousness has a correspondence as far as the way the physical reality like connects with it, if, like on some level. It's like, if you're like a drunk, for example, which I was for like years, so it's like I can speak to that state of consciousness. It led me to jail, drama, chaos, very abnormal time of like life for me. But if you would continue on in that state, it's just going to just reflect more and more of this drama and chaos till eventually, I feel like it would. I quit drinking because I thought it was going to kill me eventually, and it was like I was drinking like a lot, to the point where it's like, I really need to stop this, because I was like, I probably easily drank a fifth of vodka just in one sitting, and like I was drinking liquor, and just like, my sleep schedule was a complete shit show. I'd stay up all night drinking and then sleep like literally all day, and it's just like I lose track of the day and time and everything. Is really like fucked up. But like yeah, but like looking back, the mental stories of just hopelessness, despair, boredom, all these kinds of things, it was really starting to get amplified more and more of that state. But like going back to like the body and like health, it's the same, like these negative mental stories of like, oh, I'm not looking as attractive as I could be, feeling sluggish, my energy is kind of shit, my health, it's like I can't keep this up, I'm going to give myself some sort of a fucking disease, if I continue to do that. And these are the same kind of like mental stories that are just running unconsciously as you're in that state, which can lead to despair, hopelessness. And it's not until you take charge of it and then really start to look at everything almost like an artist, of like, okay, yeah, this is where I'm at, and this is like stewarding here, like 101, where it's like you just look at where you're at. It's like, how can I make this better? How can I like perfect what I have, and go from there, starting now. So it's like with your body, and your health, if you're overweight or whatever, you can choose right now to stop identifying with that, and choosing to like, I'm gonna be in the best shape I've ever been in my entire life. I'm gonna have a fucking six pack, by the end of this. I'm gonna be fucking, like super hot, or whatever you want to tell yourself, and then start moving towards that daily, which you're only ever doing now. So if you're telling yourself stories about how you're unattractive, how you're fat, how you're unhealthy, how you got these problems, you have this drama going on, well, realize that where that's coming from. That's coming from your old slave mind, which is not who you are anymore. It's like, ultimately God is in control of your body, and so letting go of a lot of the things about that. It's like you can limit your calories, but it's like it's God that gives the increase. So it's like as you're growing your faith in the fact that, okay, I'm doing my part, God's doing God's part. This is all coming together. As you start to move in that direction of like changing your physical appearance, changing your health, having this vision, of what do you want to feel like on the inside, and then start to assume that you are already that way. It's like you don't have this like threat of disease anymore because of what you're doing. That's old. That's no longer what's going on. And start to embody more and more what you can. Go from like 1 to 2 in your mindset. I'm actually feeling a lot better. Cut the pop out. I chopped the soda out, whatever you want to call that shit. Cut the sugars out. Starting to feel different. But then it's like when the weight starts coming off, you get led through these bridges of incidents, that is ultimately affecting your consciousness more than the physical, and you start to pick that up the more that you like break addiction like cycles. You start to see how the unconscious thoughts have been really playing a role in how you been interpreting your perception and all this kind of stuff. But as you start to like move in a direction, maybe exercising daily, that's a good example. You definitely should be exercising. Like kind of like pushing things, pushing yourself. But you can only, go from where you're at now, right here, right now. What can you do? Can you do anything? Can you do some push-ups in between a commercial break? Can you, do something that's start to move you in a different direction? And as you start to just make those deliberate lifestyle changes, by kind of like taking action, which a lot of people don't want to hear. It's like, yeah, you have to take some sort of an action, but I feel like that's only temporary until you actually get the correct mindset. Because it's like, as you take action, what's really going on is, you're facing a fear that's preventing you from taking the action anyway. And so as you face the fear by taking the action, by facing it, trusting that God's the one that's like in control, it's okay, it's like these fears are unfounded, this is all like an illusion, and then, then the weight starts coming off, and you start like, instead of like focusing on the weight loss, you start focusing on what you want your body to actually look like. And if your body did look like that, how would you feel? And start connecting with that energy of like, that's actually who you are. You are attractive, you are this, you are that, you are abundant, you are prosperous, you are these things that you're like maybe craving or fucking desiring or whatever. The desire is only just showing you what you feel like you're lacking. So to get stuck in desires, just to be stuck in lack, which can feel hopeless, but to grow hope, is in, having this vision of, what you desire to, do you want to feel strong? Do you want, whatever you want, you start moving in that direction. And as you start to do that over and over again, you start to see the results. And it's almost like the results start building and building. And it's like, as you like really start to concrete this, like this internal vision to an external demonstration, well, then the hope starts growing more so each day, of like, today I'm better than I was yesterday. And then as you kind of focus on every day you wake up, everything is better than it was yesterday, because you've already made the change. Don't keep looking back at the old state, but keep expanding your vision of the new state. And as you expand and evolve and grow, your vision for your body, your health, your whatever, starts to grow along with your state of consciousness that's also growing. And in just doing that over and over again, where it felt hopeless in the past, of like, oh, I'm just going to be stuck with this out of shape body, and feeling like powerless, like a victim, like you can't do something about it when you can do something about it. It's like you start to reinforce these more I don't want to say like ideal, but these more empowering mindsets that then start to grow and grow more hope. As you see that only that God's in control of things, that you have nothing to really fear. You can really create your life like an artist. It's like you're not some victim. You're not limited in any type of way. You can do, and have anything. You just have to realize it in consciousness with God. And realize that God's your source for all these different things. Your heart's beating right now without you having to worry about it. If you do what in your heart that you need to do to get this thing done, and you pursue that, it will happen. And as you start doing that more and more so, you get more and more hope that I can move different states. I'm not stuck. I'm not a slave. I'm not this. I'm not that. And so every day becomes more and more of like exciting, of like, if I did this, I just continue to kind of grow that into like a whole new thing that I didn't even imagine was a possibility before. And the more that you focus your attention on the desirable, what you want, what you have to steward right now and take care of, right now is when you're always starting, and you're already doing this. So you're either doing unconsciously, telling yourself fearful, hysterical things, and telling yourself how you're the opposite of what you desire, and feeling hopeless. You can start moving in a direction of more and more hope as you start seeing how the inner being is being externalized and reflected back to you like a big mirror. So it's like the more that you feel like your body's like best shape you've ever been in, and you actually believe that, then people will start like reflecting that back to you and saying, hey, you look like you've been hitting the gym or doing whatever, and yeah, it's like you're like in really good shape. What's your secret? And people will be drawn to you by your demonstration of your state of consciousness. Same thing with like abundance and prosperity and shit like that. Where it's like if you're not in a scarcity mindset all the time, always feeling like there's no hope, and I'm just, oh, you see, inflation is just making my dollars weaker and weaker and weaker. Where you can start to change that around and have a more hopeful attitude, realizing that God is your supply for your money or whatever, that it's all just energy, that God is the source of, and that is within you. And so it's like, where you have in your own consciousness, you've already given yourself your own paycheck, whether you want to admit it or not, but like whatever you've given yourself already, whether that's 20 grand a year, 50 grand, 100, a million, whatever, it doesn't fucking matter. It's just as easy for God to give you another zero added to it. Look around. There's people that make 10 times what you make, 100 times, 1,000 times. It's all from one source, and so, oh, that must be the devil, Mike. Didn't you know that? And it's like, it's all being reflected of what your inner faith is. So if you believe that, that's what you're going to see. But that's disregarding one of the most important commands Jesus gave of Hear, O Israel, our Lord God is one. And there's lots of verses of the oneness and the connectivity of all things. But you'll start to know that more and more through experience, through the demonstration, through the testing, through this process of awakening. You'll start to see how your mindset becomes what you're actually experiencing. So and once you start to pick up on that, more and more hope is just naturally building, because it's like every day it's like exciting. It's like, oh, what's God going to bring today to like expand and grow? Especially when you realize that like all these fears and these doubts and all this shame and guilt from the old being, the old man, the matrix, slave mind, whatever, however you want to describe them, as you face the different fears that are brought to you in the here and now, and you grow your faith by facing it, going through it, growing, basically it's just like a healing process. It's like you realize like the fear is like a heavy weight, that when you face it and you realize it's like, oh, there's nothing to actually be afraid of. It's just you just are doing one thing at a time always. It's like, listen to what's his he's like free solo mountain climber. I can't remember his name, but like Alex Holland, I think. He free soloed El Cap or something. Let me see if I can find him, because he deserves a shout out with the fucking shit he's into. Yeah, Alex Honnold, crazy. Some of the shit he's doing. But it's like someone who climbs ladders that are tall enough that if you fail, you die without a rope or anything. I can kind of I appreciate his point of view when it's like, don't freak out. When he's like thousands of feet up in the air. I mean, really, if you're gonna fall to your death, yeah, thousands of feet would suck because you have like time to think about it. It's like, but what he was saying is like you're always just doing one thing at a time, and part of like the fear and hysteria and what free solo mountain climbing is, for those that don't know what that is, it's basically climbing mountains without any type of ropes or things. So it's like if you fall, you just die. Nothing's like gonna help save you from that. And so what he was saying is like when the fear starts to just manifest, you get into a situation where you're stuck and you don't feel like you can make another move. If you're able to get conscious and breathe, it's just one move at a time. Everything's just one thing at a time. And that's really helpful advice. Because it's like easy to start spinning out in worst case scenarios and everything else. But when you're not doing that, or when you are doing that, to just bring it back to, okay, I just need to make this phone call. I just need to do one push-up. I just need to do one thing. I just need to go to this one place. I'm just driving. I'm just, it was just whatever. Just break it down to like tangible, right now things. It makes it, makes the fear start to subside. It gets out of like your mind and like imagining the worst case scenarios to getting more and more present and still and aware. Connect with God. Realize that God's gave you the way out. That it's there. You just have to look for it, and then it'll be like, oh, there it is, there it is. But doing that naturally starts to lead to more and more hope as you're not just drowning in fears and worst case scenarios all the time, because you've already faced fear enough to realize it's an illusion, that it's only exists within your own mind, and that it's ultimately not real. Only love is real. And so like the more that you actually believe that, the more the hope starts to just, oh, I'm excited to get up today and spend the day going down this bridge of incidents to some destination that I'm not even aware of anymore. I don't know what it's going to end up being, but it's like with your body, it's like you start seeing the progress of like getting healthier and healthier. And by healthier and healthier, I'm also meaning fitter and fitter. Just more and more like to the point where it's like I'm excited to get up today to see the progress. You're excited for this momentum, this positive momentum, and that's another way to start building up hope. And then one of the last ways to do it is to stop putting your attention on shit that you don't want to happen to you. So it's like if you're like obsessed with like murderers and like, oh, did you hear what happened in the world today? It's like every worst case scenario is also happening in the world today. Someone's getting raped, killed, stolen from, fucking abused, tortured, tormented, all that kind of shit, and it's all a reflection of the collective consciousness and our consciousness on some level to take responsibility and ownership of that. But it also has to do with our awareness and how we're putting our attention on things is actually manifesting a lot of what we don't want unconsciously. And our currency in a lot of ways is our attention. So it's like if you're constantly watching like things that are putting you in shitty mindsets, they're making you fall under the spell of separation, of ego kind of drama and bullshit that's keeping the veil between you and your creator kind of foggy. Those are all indications that you're putting too much attention on maybe satanic shit, which ultimately you can start moving to more heavenly things. Start focusing on what you do desire, which is just love and God and positive, like heaven. That's what everybody wants, whether they want to admit it or not. But like the more that you're doing that, the more and more that becomes your focus, and these other things just start to drop off. Does it exist in duality? Everything exists. It's like there's contrast all over the place, but it's like, do you focus on war and fucking like destruction and chaos, which is a direct reflection of the mind of chaos and drama, the unconsciousness of people being externalized? It's like, yeah, as long as people are being unconscious. But if people are being unconscious, that you are experiencing a lot of unconsciousness, that's because it's going on with you and you're not letting it go. So it's being externalized and you're having to deal with it like that. If you start to process your own fears, own your own bullshit, and start to start healing that, that stuff starts to naturally fade away as you start to see that everything's functioning under divine law, where it's like you're constantly reaping what you're sowing in consciousness. So it's like if you're reaping, or if you're sowing seeds of hopelessness and despair by focusing on the they that you've built up and put on a pedestal, well, then you start to, it's like get in these feedback loops. So it's like you can just get into this hopeless feedback loop when the alternative feedback loop of hope is right there at the same time. All you have to do is shift your attention, your focus, and start really believing it, on some level, demonstrating it, and you go from like a 0 hope to a 0.1 hope today, then to a 0.5, then to a 1. But you start growing it and growing it until eventually you look back and it's like, damn, it's like, I'm really excited to get up out of bed today. I'm excited to see what the day has in store. I'm excited to see how my body is looking. It's like, instead of having this like going from life to death or just feeling like I'm just going downhill, you start moving uphill. You start feeling better and better about your body, your consciousness, all these different things. So I just wanted to share that with you guys, especially in the truth community. If you're into a lot of that kind of shit, I can't watch that shit, hardly anymore, because it's just like, you're still chasing these fucking external things and being affected by it. It's like, oh, did you hear what Biden said and did, and did you hear what the screen did next? And it's like, let's talk about the illusion, and let's I'm going to be an expert on this illusion, and I'm going to be an expert on this policy, and then I'm going to argue with people that are contrary to that illusion. And it's like, meanwhile, you're just picking and parroting these scripts, and it's like, well, did you hear? And I've been guilty of that. I'm maybe guilty of that now on some level. I don't know, but it's like, I recognize that as like unhelpful. It's like, oh, let's be an expert in parroting these scripts and narratives. Oh, did you hear about this narrative? And because it's like, as you like kind of put your attention on the narratives, then you grow the narrative. It's like, well, did you see Building 7? And it's like, let's have like let's go down all these different rabbit holes of all these external things, and it's just like become experts. And well, did you hear what that expert said? Let's parrot what he said to have an argument with this guy over here. It's like, are we having original thought, or are we just parroting things again? People parrot, that's like, it's easy for like people in like some circles to like point at like, oh, look at the sheep just parroting scripts of parrots, and I've done that shit too with the COVID stuff. It's like, what are you talking about? You're just repeating nonsense. But it becomes a point where it's like, you have to like take some ownership of like, am I parroting stuff? Am I actually using my own brain, or am I just like repeating something like some other truther discovered, and like incorporating that and just repeating it? Am I being a repeater? It's like, I don't know. It doesn't really, be a repeater. I don't care. But with that being said, I'm gonna bounce. So thanks everybody for liking, sharing, subscribing, all the social networking things. Appreciate your spiritual support and your physical support. Thank you for that. I do appreciate it. And until the next now, God bless.